Okay. It says we're live. So I don't see if there's anyone on here or not. If there is, I will do an intro just in case. But my name is Erin Moody. I work with Orlando Insights Group, and we are a technology consulting company. And what we really wanted to start doing is some podcasts and video interviews with some incredible people in the industry to teach our audience all about technology. So, for our inaugural event, we have Dominic Vogel with us today. Dom is a globally recognized cybersecurity leader, keynote speaker, and leadership coach with over 15 years of experiences helping businesses build strong, people-centered security cultures. He is the founder of Vogel Leadership Coaching, and he blends technical expertise with emotional intelligence to guide organizations through today's evolving digital threats. He has awesome posts on LinkedIn, so if you are not following him already, definitely encourage you to do so to get a nice spark and start to your day. So welcome, Dom, to our first podcast.
Erin, my friend, thank you so much for having me on here. And that's like the best intro I've ever heard myself. So I'm going to have to steal that from you and use it.
Nice. I'll shoot it over to you afterwards. Awesome. All right. So we can just jump in. So my first question kind of goes into your transition into entrepreneurship. So you began your career in corporate cybersecurity before you founded your own venture. So just curious, what motivated you to take that leap into entrepreneurship, and what challenges did you face during that shift?
I know you're not easing me into any easy questions. We're just diving right into the deep end.
Yep.
You know what? I'm celebrating 10 years as an entrepreneur this year. You know, it's been 10 years since I've left corporate, and I jokingly say that I don't think I can ever go back to corporate. A, it's been too long, and B, I'm pretty sure I'm broken in terms of being able to work in that type of culture. But it wasn't so much a motivation as it was that, as it is for, unfortunately, for a lot of people, working in an extremely toxic environment. You know, I worked under an extremely toxic person. I ended up burning out. I didn't realize I was burning out until my wife said to me one day, she said, "I don't even recognize you anymore, right? You are, you're always cynical, you're jaded, you're not you, and that was an earth-shattering moment for me, and I remember looking at when I was at work in my final days, and it was around the time where I'm not sure if you remember the Christian Bale Batman movies,
Oh, yeah.
the trilogy, and the previous night I had watched one of the movies, and it was a line. I always forget who said the line, but the line stuck with me, and it motivated me to make the change. It said, either you die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. And I remember looking around at my colleagues at work, and they were all what I refer to now as corporate gargoyles. Right? They had no soul in terms of what the
Yeah.
work meant. Nothing to them. It was a paycheck.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And
Sure.
and I've always been someone who's been intrinsically motivated, right? That inner flame, right? Where something that motivates you. And I could feel that flickering. And I realized at that point, I was like, well, either I move now, or I that flicker is gone. I become a villain, a corporate villain, so to speak. And I made the decision right then and there. So some small part I owe Batman / Christopher Nolan and Christian Bale, the fact that they pushed me onto the path of being an entrepreneur. I resigned that day when I had that enlightenment. I
Oh,
went right
that
up to my
day? You just did it
and
that day?
I said I'm
Wow.
done. I'm not doing this anymore. I went to my car, and there was no 2 weeks notice or anything. I was done, and I left, and I went to the car, and I called my friend who was a recruiter, and he'd been in my ear for the longest time. He said, "Dom, you could be getting way more as an independent contractor." And this was 10 years ago. And he
Right.
said, you could even get remote work, which was not very common back then.
Yeah.
And so I remember I called him in the parking lot of my former employer, and I said, to him. I said, you know what, if you're the hotshot that you said that you are, you're going to find me an opportunity, because I at the time I was single, source of income for my family. My daughter was 4 at the time. I said, I just quit. There's no money coming in. I need you to be the recruiter that you say that you are. And he said, give me 30 minutes. And true to form, he called me 30 minutes later. He said, I got someone on the line here. They want to give you a 1-year contract, fully remote. Right. So that started my pull away from corporate. And as I used that first year, I was doing some remote work, I recognized where I felt I could have the greatest impact, and I've gone through various reimaginations over my 10 years as an entrepreneur. And, the first few years are very much just sort of taking a few contracts here and there. Then I started to put myself in a very uncomfortable space of, hey, you know what? All I ever thought I could do was corporate cybersecurity, but I ended up learning how to do sales, how to do marketing, how to do branding, how to build relationships. I pushed myself I always assumed I couldn't do these things, and I went through this process where what I call an audit assumption. I wrote down all these things that I believe about myself to be true, and I actively challenged them. And that pushed me on the path to eventually the person that you and my other friends over the past decade have met, particularly on LinkedIn, where I've tried to, like I said, very much focus on just being very relationship centric, very people centric, and sort of the current manifestation or current reimagination of where I am as an entrepreneur right now. It's brought me to an area where there's 3 areas of passion. As an entrepreneur, I've now come to appreciate that you don't chase money, you chase passion, you chase what sets your soul on fire. If you do that, the money will come. And for me, those 3 things are cybersecurity. So I focus on small and mid-sized organizations, primarily B2B organizations that are really struggling with how do we deal with this. And this is at the executive level, board level, strategic level. And that's one area of my professional passions. The other one is being able to do coaching, right? Focusing on essentially tech leaders who are very good with tech, but really struggle to lay out a strategy, communicate to the board, inspire their team. They really struggle with their people skills. I have organizations that bring me in to level up their tech leaders and truly make them leaders. And then the last piece for me is professional speaking at tech events, other events, but again, giving an injection of humanity and technology and how they blend. And LinkedIn is my social glue, as you know. So it's a very long-winded first answer, Erin, but that's the shortest I could give you.
I love how you kind of took us on the trajectory, because I think that there are a lot of people that can probably resonate with working in corporate and maybe feeling like there's something else out there. But also maybe being afraid to take that leap and thinking that they have to have it all figured out. And I think, like you said, like you took time to kind of try a few different things. And I'm sure that led to insights, and you kind of figured out, what made you feel that passion, what lit you up versus what you didn't like. So that's the nice thing about being an entrepreneur is you don't have to do the things that you don't like. You can just focus on what you're good at and where you can bring value. And I love that you're coaching the tech organizations too, because you're maybe helping some of those managers not be toxic. Like I believe most people want to be good people. Maybe they just don't have the skills. So that's really cool. You're like bringing it full circle. I love that.
Thank you. Yes. And you're right about toxicity. Some of it is unintended toxicity, right? Especially in groups like tech people, where I'll just say traditionally they don't develop their people skills to the same extent they develop their technical skills. They don't realize they're giving off this unintended toxicity, right? So that's where, again, leadership and investing in them as people helps grow them as leaders, but more importantly, helps grow the team as well. And it's not just more tech. I'm a big believer in the tech space that more technology isn't the answer, right? You need to infuse it with the right amount of humanity.
Exactly. No, I love it. Thank you for that. So kind of leading into my next question, with the human element in cybersecurity. So you just mentioned it's not all about the tech. It's also human centered. So could you maybe elaborate a little bit more on how organizations can address the human factor of the cybersecurity effectively? and kind of avoid the missteps that I'm sure you've seen.
You know what? And I'm a big believer, and I'll contrast what I'll say is sort of a standard security answer to that question, and then what I believe is the more people-oriented question or answer to that question. So a standard security person will give you the answer of, oh, we need security awareness training. We need to make sure people are aware in terms of what not to click and click, that type of thing. That's very tired, very dated, very my mind, just very bad advice. The fact that in this day and age we're still creating systems that one person inadvertently clicking on something that they can bring that down, that's a really crappy system. We're not creating very resilient systems. So to me, when we're talking about people in cyber, it's not at the, like better term, user level. Where we need to talk about people is at the leadership level, right? This is with people who own organizations, or CEOs, CFOs, C-suite, board of directors, right? Particularly with, again, the small and mid-sized organizations. Enterprise has moved with cyber risk and looking at it from a risk perspective. I'm one of the things when I go talk with boards or executives in the small and mid-sized business space is I try really hard to call it cyber risk and not cybersecurity, because when cybersecurity unfortunately has this connotation that non-technical, non-IT business executives, when they hear cybersecurity, they automatically think, oh, that's something for the IT team to deal with. It's not. Maybe operationally, maybe how it's implemented, yes, but fundamentally, it's a risk, right? And so to truly infuse the people part of cybersecurity, it's needing leadership to adopt it as a risk. You have personnel risk, operational risk, financial risk. There's all sorts of risks that organizations face, and they talk about it in the risk lens. We live in a very digitized age, right? Here we are on the opposite sides of the continent, and we're doing a LinkedIn Live, right? Technology has come very, very, very far. But with that, we need to understand that there are risks with this. It's not just a tech thing. It's very much intertwined, interwoven in business, and as such, risk comes with that. So by elevating this outside of, I'll say, IT, and elevating it more so into the board level, at the executive level, you need to have boards and executives and leaders talking about it through a risk lens. That way, the IT people, the IT service providers, there's greater alignment there in terms of what's being done. Because what I see as one being the greatest gaps with, again, the people part is an IT company, IT service provider, or internal IT team for, your average small mid-sized organization, they're getting very little guidance from the board or their executives. So they're doing, at best, an ad hoc approach to cybersecurity. And then what you have is the law of assumptions kick in, where IT assumes one thing, board executives assume another. And when a data breach happens, or ransomware, or some really bad security incident happens, board executives say, well, IT, I thought you were doing that. And IT is like, no, you never told us to do that, right? Or, and this just happened to me a few days ago, Erin. I received a call from a prospect, and there's the CFO from an organization. They said, yeah, we just got hit by ransomware. We needed to have our data back up in, within 24 hours. I said, okay, well, what's your current setup? They said, well, IT team set it up for 72 hours. So, okay, well, did you ever communicate that to the IT team? No. It's like, well, they're just going off best practice, right? Like, you need to have these conversations. Otherwise, there's no alignment, right? So back to why I do coaching, I jokingly refer to it as cheap couples therapy. A lot of organizations, IT, and like a better term, the business, they're like couples that don't get along, right? Or just they talk like, you don't listen to me, right? That's where I come in, and I can I talk tech, I talk business and risk, right? So I think that, to me, to bring this full circle now, the people part that we need to solve with cyber is that we need to get everyone talking on the same page, and not just tech and business or risk, and having that chasm.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just thinking to my corporate days as an HR business partner for our, I did cybersecurity and IT, and like that would be the issue. Like they wouldn't be able to communicate, and it's almost like they needed like an interpreter
Yep.
which is kind of like what, yeah, that's what I was getting from you. That's kind of what you are. So, and that is like the people in tech are so smart on what they
Yes. Oh,
do,
for
and
sure.
then the leaders are smart and they know what they do, but it's like you have to be able to talk to each other to make sure that everybody's on the same page and, like you
Yep.
said, protecting the company from risk. So
Yes.
awesome. Love it. All right, perfect. So for as far as leadership coaching, you can dive a little bit more into that. That's kind of your focus right now. So one of the things that you really talk about in your posts and that I get from your website and everything is that you're really working on developing or helping them develop qualities such as empathy and self-awareness. So why do you believe those qualities are so important for leaders, particularly in the tech industry?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Erin. And um, I'll answer it sort of in a backwards fashion in that I believe it's necessary for all levels of leadership. Right? We don't see enough leaders, regardless of if it's in tech or other sectors, that are rooted again in empathy, in kindness, and there's all sorts of analysis studies have shown. I just read an article the other day from Harvard Business Review that was talking about how kindness has such a positive impact on culture. Right?
Right.
So much of corporate America slash Canada, corporate world is rooted in very dated approaches in terms of leadership and structure, right? And it's not rooted in empathy or kindness. But again, time and time. Just think about your own life. If someone makes you feel appreciated, and that's why I've seen my own growth on LinkedIn. If you make people feel good, they will give you more. They will show up more. You'll
Right.
have easier conversations. Who wants to show up
Yeah.
for someone who makes you feel like a pile of dog crap, right? So
Right.
it's not just feel good stuff. This is, again, to me, it's rooted in science and it's rooted in real world benefits that organizations that have leaders that are structured to be able to, are empowered to lead, like I said, through empathy, through
Mhm.
kindness, through compassion. That's how you get the best out of your people while they're with you, right? We live in an
Right.
age where it's not like bygone eras where people stay with organizations for 20, 30, 40 years, right? Both my parents were teachers. They taught at the same school for 35 plus years, right? When I left corporate, they could not wrap their head around that. Even when I job hopped before I became an entrepreneur, they still couldn't conceive that. When I got my first corporate job, like, oh, great, this is a great place for you to work for the next 25 years. I was like, I'm not
Right.
working here for 25 years. I don't know what the hell you're talking about, right? So, I really believe that modern leadership, in order to get the best while your people are there, it's like shooting stars, right? You
Right.
need to create an environment that allows you to capture that shooting star brilliance, and the tools to do that are empathy, kindness, compassion, right? Leading through levels of vulnerability. That's how you're going to get your people to operate at their best while they're with you, right? We need to
Right.
change this whole notion of, oh, we're going to try and hold them as long as we can. That's the wrong approach, right? Make the best out of them while they're with you, however long that ends up being, right? So I'm a big believer in that. And why I focused on the tech space, I guess, is twofold. One is I grew up in that space, right? For lack of a better term, whatever tech people, especially cybersecurity people, are thinking, feeling, I've been there and then some, right? They're almost 20 years of being in the field. I know what they're feeling, right? So when I coming from a point of saying, here's how we're going to develop more empathetic communication, I can do so in a way that I know will better resonate with them compared to a, let's say, another
Right.
coach who has never been in the field.
Right. Right.
IT people and tech people, I'm sure you can appreciate this, Erin, they listen to their own more so than those who have never been in their footsteps.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So that's why I focus there. But the other reason, like I said, why I focus there is that I truly believe that the next quantum leap in technology isn't going to come from more technology or deeper levels in technology. Where I truly believe the next quantum leap is going to happen is when we do a better job of interlocking humanity with technology. And the only way that we do that is by really trying to level up the tech leaders out there, whether they're working for tech companies, whether they're part of an internal IT team, right?
Right.
Equipping them with the people skills necessary for that interlocking to happen. There's going to be amazing harmonization there, and then and only then is we're going to truly unleash the full power of technology, right? Because to me, the thing I look at is look how far we've evolved our technology, even over the past 100 years.
Right.
But if you look at I'll say our collective humanity in terms of how far we've evolved as a society, I'd argue that, you know, we're not evolving at that same pace. Technology is evolving at this pace. Our society
Right.
has been at this, and arguably now is like that. But
Right. Dips and yeah.
how do we get that same accelerant curve? Because if, as a society and like, as a human race, we evolved at that same rate as technology. Think about all the amazing things we could accomplish then, right? So that's why
Right.
I've chosen to focus on that.
Awesome. I love it. It's so cool. And you're talking about that. I was just thinking about my own career and about the managers that I've had that, or not even just managers, business leaders, and the ones that have the highest performing teams. They weren't like, I don't want people to think like if you have empathy, that means you're like a pushover manager. Like they're tough. Like they have really high expectations, but there's still that empathy. Like you said, it like gives you the want to make them be proud of you.
For sure. You know, and I was actually having this conversation with one of my clients the other day, not to confuse kindness with niceness. Those are two
Right.
very, very different things, right? If
Right.
and just giving an example, like if someone gave a presentation, you want to give feedback to them. Niceness is saying, "Oh, hey, you did an awesome job," even though like they
Right.
were terrible. Kindness is then rooting your feedback in the way that you said, "Hey, you know what? You had great energy. I really love where you started, but slide 3 here, you kind of lost me, and here's
Right.
maybe I think how you can maybe do better next time." That's kindness, right?
Right.
Versus niceness, right? So never
Yeah.
ever confuse the two.
Yeah, exactly. All right, awesome. All right, so given your experience in cybersecurity, but also advising startups, small businesses, what have you seen as a common cybersecurity pitfall that these people encounter, and how can they proactively mitigate them?
You know what? And I think you hit the word the perfect word there at the end there. The biggest issue I see is that organizations, particularly small and mid-sized organizations, do not act proactively enough.
Mhm.
Most organizations at the SMB level that I deal with are, and this is true even now, even more so right now, where a lot of organizations are just sitting on money. People are scared to spend money. They'll wait for what I call a digital or cyber heart attack. So that's
Mm,
getting a data breach, ransomware, something,
right,
an adverse event happening, right?
right.
And then they will spend. The problem with that is that when you wait for a reactive event, it's far more costly, and the risk of, I'll say, survival
Yeah.
is much lower, right, compared to if you were to deal with it beforehand. And again, just like in real world, an analogy I often give to prospects is, you know, let's say you're on on a one-way train to a heart attack. You can make the steps now and change your lifestyle now, and it's
Mhm.
going to be far less costly and far lower risk. Or you could wait till that train pulls into the train station, you have that massive coronary heart attack. Then
Right,
it's going to be very expensive, very timely. It's going to take much longer, and as again, the odds of you not surviving that go up, right?
right.
So again, it's framing it that way. That is the biggest misstep that I see with organizations, is that they are far too reactive, and there's far too much what I refer to as 1995 level thinking with small and
Mm,
mid-sized organizations, right? And I
right,
still hear to this day, we're a small company. We don't have anything that anyone would want. I was like, dude, that is so mid '90s. Like,
right.
you can't like that. There was a time when that was true, and I will absolutely admit that even as little as, honestly, maybe even 7, 8 years ago, you could get away with that argument. But over
Right.
the past decade, and in particular, you know, I'll say even during COVID, where we saw it really accelerate, the focus and the global shift of cybercrime focusing on small and mid-sized organizations is every organization, even the smallest of companies, you're one person shop, right? You can get hit. One of my friends on LinkedIn, she reached out to me. She's a one person entrepreneurial shop. She got hit by a wire transfer fraud and she lost like $15,000, right? And for a one person shop, she was like, that's a lot of money. I don't know if I can absorb that, right?
Right.
Every organization is at risk. I jokingly say that unless you're selling tacos at the back of a Volvo and all cash deals, you're a tech company. We all rely on tech.
Yeah.
We all rely on data,
Very
right?
true.
And
Yeah.
and even if the biggest misconception is that we don't have any sensitive data, right? Again, that was true. That may have been true in terms of what was important for criminals to steal, right? But in this day and age, And like I said, every organization operates on data, right? So even if your data that and the systems you use, even if it can't be sold on the underground market, it has no monetary value. It has monetary value somewhere. It has monetary value with you, right? So if you as an organization, you lose access to your key data and you can't fulfill your organization's mission, guess what? That's costing you money. And cyber criminals know that, right? So like I said, even if there's no monetary value in the underground market, you're willing to pay to regain access to it. Otherwise, your organization ceases to exist, right? So that, to me, again, to answer your question, is that the biggest missteps are that we're still clinging to misconceptions of the past, and that small and mid-sized organizations are not willing to have the conversations proactively that this is a risk. That this is a risk. It's not a tech issue. This isn't something that your IT team or IT guy or gal deals with. This is a business risk. That's the biggest gap.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that you could put that in a lot of things where people are more reactive than proactive.
It's human nature, unfortunately, to wait. So I absolutely do. Again, there's interesting psychology behind that as well. Like human nature is often to wait until things are really bad. Then like, oh crap, maybe we should have done something about that, right? So it is certainly human nature. But like I said, I think right now the best way of trying to get proactive around it is reframing it around risk, unless it's a technical issue.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's super helpful. And hopefully, if there are any small businesses or medium-sized businesses on here, they're hearing that message and taking steps to be proactive, because we definitely want your companies to stick around and thrive, and it's not going to happen if you're falling victim to that. So.
No, and I'll give a real quick, at least I think it's somewhat of a funny example. An organization I had been prospecting for probably close to 9 months. I had a conversation with the CFO, and I said, this is what it would cost to engage me now proactively, right? And he said, yeah, I appreciate this, hold on to this, but we're not going to act on this. I said, just so you know, you can reach out anytime. I said, if and when you reach out to me, and it's when stuff has happened, there's digital blood on the wall. The price I gave you there, I'm going to 10x that. And he's like, okay, sure, I got that. I was in Disney World with the family a few years ago, and I got a call, and I try not to answer my phone on holidays, but I recognized that it was that prospect I've been trying to get a hold of for 9 months, and picked it up, and I said, hey, what's going on? And he said, yeah, we just got hit with a significant security issue. This is a big incident. We're going to need your help. I said, do you still have the proposal I gave you? He said, I do. I said, did you write down that I was going to 10x that? He said, I did. And I said, okay, I'm on vacation right now in Disney World. I said, so if you want me to act on it now, I'm going to 15x that. If you can wait 5 days, I will action it when I come back. He said, I'll wait till you come back. And then again, they ended up being a long-term client. Again, I think I do appreciate it. He said, you know what? I was wrong. He said, this is something we should have acted on proactively. He said, I didn't think that this was a big. He said, I didn't think this was a risk. So hopefully that example illustrates, like I said, this is a risk. This isn't a tech issue.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect example, and unfortunately, they didn't listen. So it ended up costing them 10 times
help
as
pay for the
much.
Disney vacation.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Oh man, no, that's a great example. Thank you for sharing that. So jumping back into empathy, because that is something near to my heart, of course, and I know that it's important to you too. So we talked about the importance of empathy in leadership. How can tech organizations use empathy and leadership to impact team dynamics and project outcomes? So that ROI, like putting that, because that's very important, to kind of say, yeah, it's good to be nice, but how does it impact?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And I work with a lot of my clients. I build out their security team from the ground up. Where
Nice.
I'm part of hiring out their first security analyst and building out the structure. And the thing that I'm a firm believer in, and I do see it again from a team dynamic perspective. Again, think about from a human nature perspective. you can be more free with your ideas. It can be greater innovation when it's a safe psychological space. You can only do that if you create a culture of empathy and trust and compassion. Are you going to bring up an idea that may go against the boss's idea if it's a culture of fear and intimidation and toxicity? No, you're going to keep your damn mouth shut, right?
Yeah.
Right? And or you're going to be looking for work elsewhere.
Right.
You're not going to get truly innovative ideas, right? If you actively encourage dissent, if you actively encourage people to share their voice and say, you know what, if I'm as the boss, I'm saying this path, but you think otherwise, let's hear about it. Let's have a discussion. That is, again, creating a culture of openness, right, and empowerment, right? So when we talk about, to me, empowerment and innovation are outcomes. To open those gates, you need to use the keys of kindness and compassion and empathy. Those are the keys that open those gates. If you don't want a culture of innovation and empowerment, then yeah, do the opposite of that. But if you truly want an empowered culture, those are the keys that unlock that.
Perfect. Yeah, I love it. And I think that just thinking back on my own career, and I've been really lucky, honestly, to have most of my leaders. That's kind of the nice thing about working in HR. Typically, typically your leaders do have.
There's some good humans there.
Yeah, but you would be surprised. I have definitely had a couple of instances where the person at the top probably shouldn't have been working in HR, to be completely honest. And just like you said, that if you have that level of fear and like, you're not going to speak up. Like nobody's going to speak up. You're not going to get any ideas. People are going to collect their paycheck while they're actively looking for a new opportunity. Yeah. So great example. And I think that the more leaders embrace that empathy and kindness, the more they're going to thrive and have an innovative organization. Cool. So I wanted to jump in. I know we're all seeing technology is growing like crazy. We've got AI everywhere. It's changing and improving quicker than I think most of us imagined. So I wanted to get your thoughts on kind of what you think is the future of cybersecurity, and if there are any emerging cybersecurity threats that you think that our business leaders should be aware of.
Yeah, great question, Erin. I'll put it this way, in terms of at least the emerging threats or things that companies and executives need to be worried about. Far too many small, mid-sized organizations are not prepared for the threats of yesterday. There's a lot who are struggling to deal with the threats of today. The generative AI, is essentially a supercharged fuel for these, right? And that if you are struggling to deal with, like I said, the threats of yesterday and today, your organization will cease to exist because of the threats of tomorrow, right? So one of my rallying cries is, what, focus on dealing with the threats that you need to be dealing with now. Right, because I do hear a lot of organizations saying, "Oh, what type of AI threat should we be worrying about?" And the same token, these organizations aren't prepared to deal with the simplest of scams or threats of today. And I always say, you know what? That's like saying if you're hogtied to a railway track and there's a train that's about to slice you in half, and that's the threats of yesterday and today, and the AI train is down the line, you can see the light in the distance. By the time that train gets to you, the vultures were already picked you over, right? Sorry, it's a little gruesome, but that's the best analogy I can come up with. The AI threat train is very real, but like I said, in particular, small and mid-sized organizations need to start dealing with this as a risk, need to start dealing with it very quickly and proactively now. So by the time that AI threat train is closer, that they are in a much more robust, much more resilient state than they are today. Right. So I think that to me is the best way that I can sum up that, because like I said, AI is making threats that much, the volume, the velocity, the veracity, that much higher. Right. We are at a time that over at least the course of my 20 years in this field, I've never seen that level of threats in terms of how quickly they're evolving and changing and that speed, right? So we need to become much more dynamic, because very much where we are right now is that cybercrime is heavily professionalized. It's not amateurs, right? Yes, there are amateurs who do it, but it's heavily professionalized. And the sad state is that most small and mid-sized organizations take a very amateurish approach to cyber risk management. And just like in boxing, if you put up an amateur against a professional, that professional is going to do the KO 10 times out of 10. Right? So that to me is where, if we're talking about trends, what small and mid-sized organizations need to focus on.
Nice. Yeah, and that makes sense. Fix what is the immediate threat now, like you said, what's happening in the moment, and also what you've been ignoring for maybe the past 5 years. Like, let's
time to pay down the
acknowledge.
debt. Time to pay the piper.
Exactly. Yeah, that you gotta quit ignoring it, or like you said, that when the new thing gets here, then it's too late. It's too far gone. So
Yes.
yeah, I like that. All right. So jumping, I know I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit, but
That's okay. I'm loving this. This is amazing.
um, so kind of going back to LinkedIn, I know that's how we got connected. I love your posts, and one of the things that you really focus on is relationships and building relationships. So I wanted to ask you, specifically for LinkedIn, how do you turn this platform and other platforms into genuine connections versus just people who you are connected with? Like, how do you take it that next step further and create an authentic relationship?
That's a really, really good question, Erin. And 6 years ago, I stopped treating LinkedIn as a sales tool, and I started treating it as what I refer to as my friendship finder. And
Nice.
I'm a big believer that when you come from a place of being a giver, right, and that you just try to give freely of your time, of your energy, right, and again back to how you make people feel, right.
Mhm.
One of the things that over the past 6 years that I've tried to do with my content, is with my comments, is just to be a source of random joy or smile over the course of someone's day, right? There's
Right.
still far too much negative energy on, even on business platforms like LinkedIn, right?
Right.
So that's why by doing that and coupling that with content that I hope brings some level of inspiration, moments of kindness, moments of compassion, moments of, like I said, just smiles
Yeah.
to those that follow me, then I know I'm putting some good energy, empowering energy into the universe. And I'm a big believer that by doing that, you put yourself on a path where you can build very meaningful friendships, right? And that, even though, again, I'm not trying to lead or do this in the case of getting reciprocity, human nature is when someone makes you feel good, you want to spend more time with that person, right?
Right.
So
Right.
by engaging with people and showing up consistently, day in, day out, commenting, engaging, supporting, cheerleading, that then leads to DM conversations, right? That then leads to offline conversations, right? That then leads
Right.
to opportunities. That then leads to things that your mind cannot even begin to conceive. I've been able to land paid speaking opportunities, gigs, all sorts of things that my mind could not even begin to conceive, all because of the energy and time that I put into building meaningful, authentic relationships. And like I said, LinkedIn has been a tremendous generator for that and friendship finder for that, right? And that's, like I said, when you lead from a place of authenticity and
Mhm.
genuineness, and like I said, not asking for things, but simply just trying to show up as a friend, and I'll say, like my term, operationalize friendship. Make the time. Don't just show up to someone, make an ask, and then leave.
Right.
Always be having conversations. Maybe catch up once a quarter, right? And then I think of amazing human beings and friends like you. I've been able to form these meaningful friendships with, where a couple times a year, we get to catch up
Yeah.
on a video platform, and here we are now doing a LinkedIn Live together, right? Like, it's, to me, it's, but when you root things in authenticity and deeper meaning, friendships flourish, right? And it attracts your tribe, and it'll repel the people who you don't want in your universe anyway, right? So,
Yeah.
like I said, to me, it's about just trying to lead with authenticity, with vulnerability, and lean into being yourself. And like I said, the relationships will manifest, and then you just have to put in the energy to make sure that, like I said, and I post about this a lot. I'm a big believer in operating the time to make sure that you're always building those and strengthening those relationships.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. We have a similar mindset.
That's why we're friends.
Yeah. And I will say too, like, I think LinkedIn is really nice for keeping up with people. Like, I don't know if you have this, Dom, but I will get random messages from people that I worked with when I first started my career in recruiting. Like, someone will say, "Oh, I used to be a college campus recruiter," and every now and again I'll get a message from someone, and they won't be asking for anything. They'll just say, "Oh, I saw your post, and I don't know if you remember me." Blah 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 blah. So I think that's really neat. As far as a good thing with technology, because
Absolutely.
maybe I would have never heard from them again if not for LinkedIn.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
cool.
And again, back to that notion of how you make people feel. Right? This
Right.
happened to me last year. I landed a paid speaking engagement from someone. Someone heard me speak at a conference almost a decade ago,
Oh, wow.
and they asked me a question. And 10 years ago, I had a conversation with them, and never thought anything of it. And last year, they reached out to me, and they said, "I don't know if you remember me, but I asked the question, and you spent like half an hour talking to me after your talk. I'm now a director of IT here. I moved in
Very cool.
we're looking
Yeah.
to put on an event. I'd love you to be a paid speaker." I was like, "That's amazing." I talked to this person once, right?
That's
So,
awesome.
and now we have more of a friendship rather than just being an acquaintance, right? Because of
Right,
that.
right.
So, again, when you lead with empathy and you lead with kindness, that's, like I said, that's what the world needs to see.
Yeah, and that's a great example. Like, you might be a nice person and have a conversation with someone. You're not necessarily going to get anything out of it right then, but who knows what people are doing down the line,
Exactly.
and where they end up. So, not that you're doing it to get something necessarily, but it has a way of working out that way a
Yeah.
lot of times, I find. So,
Yeah.
very
Absolutely.
cool. Awesome. So my last official question that I had for you.
You have lots of
Um,
unofficial questions.
yes. So with technology, we talked about the fact that some techie people may not have the best communication skills. They might have to learn that. So with people that might be thinking about getting into cybersecurity, because it is something that is top of mind, it's not going
Yeah.
away. How do you think that they should balance their developing their technical skills and developing skills like communication and leadership?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I said this to every question, but great question, Erin. And I'll put it this way, and you're absolutely right. Cybersecurity is one of the hardest job markets to get into, right? It's not going
Right.
away. With how deep we are in the digital world here, you now see even smaller organizations, right, hiring for internal security analysts, right? Organizations that would never have, 10 years ago, or as little as 5 years ago, would not have had an internal cybersecurity team. So we're seeing that really evolve and rapidly change. I'll put it this way: it's almost like the game Where's Waldo, or the book, I should say, Where's Waldo.
Right.
Especially with all the tech layoffs that have been happening over the past 18 months, 2 years. There's a lot of people with a lot of technical skills on the market,
Right.
and if you this sounds paradoxical, especially to technical people, but if you want to stand out, it's not your tech skills that are going to make you stand out. That is basic table stakes.
Right.
Right? What's going to make you stand out is your ability to communicate, to articulate, to write, to be able to hold a conversation with someone who isn't technical.
Right.
And again, to illustrate with an example, because I just like illustrating, I was going through a hiring process with a client of mine. They're a small post-secondary institution in northern British Columbia, so it's in Canada, the province I live in, and fairly remote. Like, it's nowhere near a big city. I live in Vancouver, nowhere near Vancouver.
Okay.
There was over 500, and it's a fairly small institution, 500 job applicants for a junior security analyst role. 500.
Insane.
And as I read through the resumes, Ryan, my eyes started to bleed because it looked like they were all using the same AI template to write the damn
Oh,
resume.
wow.
They're all using the same language. Like, oh, I would relish the opportunity to, work at this institution. I said, no one uses that word relish other than asking for it in the hot dog. So, they were all reading the same. And then there was a handful that stood out. You could tell the person was writing with a level of compassion and energy. The words they were using, it popped off the page. Some added a different color. Some structured it differently, right? Even when we went through the interview process, those that were able to carry a conversation and speak in the way that there was a level of eloquence and confidence, right, rather than just a tech person that was just throwing a bunch of tech jargon at you, right? I thought this is so refreshing, right? So I tell people, whether it's recent graduates, people are looking to transfer into the field, to me, the areas of differentiation right now aren't the tech stuff, right? So like I said, one is showcase your ability to be beyond technical, right? The people skills, how you communicate and write is super important, right? The second one is network. It's the ability of, I think we've gone through this progression where it used to be what you know, then there was a period of who you know. Now we're in this period of who knows you, right? Tie that to personal branding, right? If you're not out there building a relationship, building a brand, LinkedIn, at networking events, right? No one knows you, right? And guess what? You're going to get lost in the maze, right? Time and time again, I have so many people reaching out to me, Erin, on LinkedIn saying, oh, I've been applying for jobs for 9 months, 10 months, a year, right? And again, I'm sorry that it's been taking that long. I can't imagine being out of work that long. But when I ask them, what are you doing? Like, walk me through what you do in order to get work. They say, well, I'll apply the job. I'll spend 5 hours applying to jobs online. That's stupid. That is a waste of time. That is literally firing resumes into a black hole. You will never land a job. No wonder it's been 12 months. If you take that same energy and time and put it into developing your people skills and developing meaningful relationships with people in the field, you shorten that cycle immensely. Right. So that's what people need to be focusing on if you want to get into this field.
Awesome. Great advice. So I'll kind of end it with asking you how people can get in touch with you if they are a business owner and maybe they want help with cybersecurity, or if maybe they want some personal coaching. What's the best way to get you?
I appreciate that, Erin. So as Erin said, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. So connect with me on LinkedIn, Dominic Vogel. I'm the only English-speaking Dominic Vogel, I think. There's a couple of Germans out there, but you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can go to my website, Vogel, Vogel, leadershipcoaching.com. And again, you can connect with me there, drop me a line there. But those are the best two ways to reach out. And if something resonates with you, if you need help, just reach out. I'm a big believer, like I said, if you just want to have a conversation, I'm not going to charge you. I love just starting friendships. And if there's a way that I can help you, I will absolutely do so. I'm not Deloitte. I'm not going to send you a bill for $10K just for having a conversation.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. Definitely appreciate you taking an hour out of your day to give us some insights. That is definitely our goal with doing this. We're planning on talking to people once a month or so. So if you are a business owner, you want to talk about something to do with cybersecurity, AI, anything technology related, send me a message on LinkedIn. I'd love to get more information. And if there are any topics that you guys are interested in, definitely let me know. And I will do my best to find an expert to talk about them. And hopefully we can have Dom back on the show. We want to do it long term. So maybe down the line we can get your.
I'll come back anytime. Anytime, Erin. Time spent with you, my friend, is time well spent. So I will come back anytime, my friend. I thoroughly enjoyed spending time with you today and your audience. It was amazing. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much and have a great day.